been quite some staggering revelations captured in the Auditor-General's report that was about the National Service Secretariat or the National Service Scheme, and the Auditor-General has released that report which he had been conducting between 2018 and 2024, and it makes for some shocking reading. The Auditor-General also uncovered massive financial irregularities at the National Service Authority amounting to some 2.5 billion Ghana cedis. According to the latest forensic and technical audit report, the losses stem from system bypasses, poor governance, payroll manipulation and vendor mismanagement between 2018 and 2024. In one startling finding, the report revealed that the Deputy Executive Director of the National Service Scheme, Gifty Oware-Mensah, was wrongly listed on the scheme's payroll as a service personnel despite serving as a full-time public officer. We'll take you through some of the slides shortly, and you can see it on your screens if you're also following us on Facebook, because we are streaming there and have put together the slides regarding the content of that report. So if you are watching us on Facebook, you will definitely be seeing the slides as well. And it goes on to say, for instance, that payment of national service funds to internal staff. There's one, Jacob Yawson and Mr. Gazy Abraham Bismarck, and these two gentlemen, according to the report, received about 20 million Ghana cedis. And the findings was that Mr. Jacob Yawson, who is a former IT officer in Northern Region, received 18 million. It's actually 18.82, 869.82. So let's round it and say about 19 million through his entity, Nyansapo Comp Limited, as a vendor, whilst Mr. Gazy Abraham Bismarck, former head of deployment with vendor Conab Power, received a total of 1,411,598 via eSwitch. Again, another finding was that there were unsupported payments to the National Service Personnel Association, that is NASPA, and in total of 9 million Ghana cedis. So significant payments were made to the National Service Personnel Association, NASPA, during the period without formal agreements or memoranda of understanding between the National Service Secretariat or the scheme and NASPA, defining the terms, purpose, scope, and conditions under which funds were transferred. There was also no evidence of accountability or retirement of the funds by NASPA leadership to justify how the monies were applied. Another finding is the enrollment and payment of national service personnel with ineligible or invalid ages. And this particular finding showed that about 1.9 million Ghana cedis was paid to persons whose national service identities or numbers were ineligible, or their ages were not stated. So the personnel below the eligible ages, some as low as 18 years, were enrolled and paid allowances. Personnel, some above the age of 60 years, and some as old as 1,027 years. That's quite shocking. Someone is as old as 1,027-year-old were all receiving payments, and there are records to show that. And then a total of about 1.9 million was paid to these individuals. And if you've been following the specific headline that rocked a number of us, it is that Madam Gifty Oware, who is Gifty Oware-Abuaje, there is a national service number stated there, and she is at the time was the Deputy Executive Director of the National Service Secretariat. She was on the payroll and was enrolled on the 16th of March 2021, placed on the service rule payment structure as a national service personnel, despite already being a full-time salaried public officer. The enrollment was based on a Master of Public Administration degree from KNUST. She was placed on the payroll, and 100% of her monthly allowance for 12 months in the 2021-2022 service period, amounting to 6,000 Ghana cedis, was paid or was deducted from and paid to a vendor through the marketplace for a purported credit facility. She was enrolled as a service personnel along with 4,556 others, irregularly costing about 899,000 Ghana cedis. Honorable Mustafa Yusuf approved her PIN on the 22nd of April 2021, referred to appendix in the report. It is also stated there. So it's a myriad of issues captured in that report, and many people are actually expressing some level of surprise at what we are seeing or reading from the Auditor-General's report between 2018 and 2024. Let's go to the phone lines now and speak to lawyer Martin Pebu, who has joined us for a quick conversation on this. He is a private legal practitioner. Counsel, good evening. Thank you for joining us on 3FM.
Yes, evening, Martin. Right. Yes.
There have been broader conversations about this, and I'm sure now that the Auditor General's report has been made public, I'm sure that people can now appreciate the content in there. As a private legal practitioner, an anti-corruption campaigner yourself, what do you make of some of the revelations in the report?
So the first thing that it tells me that the Auditor General had been sleeping on the job in the previous years or was conniving with the previous administration. That much we have to say clearly. Where was the Auditor General when all these things were happening? Johnson Asiedu, okay, yes, Oware-Mensah, right? Where were the Auditor General and his staff all these years? And that's the first question they must answer. Elsewhere, the Auditor General would have resigned first as soon as he saw this report. He would have resigned, meaning that he's not up to the task. The Auditor General is not up to the task. He and his management, they all would have resigned, because if there hadn't been a change of government, these things wouldn't have come up. So I think the Auditor General should honorably resign. He and all of his management members, they should just go, because they just show that they've been sleeping on the job for all these years, or they were actively conniving with the previous administration and all the people who were involved in this looting of the public purse. That is where we should be concerned, because we pay people to do a job, they don't do the job, and yet every month they are drawing salaries, and they do salaries for all these years, only to come today and say they are revelations. These are not revelations. They have always known about it, or they didn't look hard enough. And so Counsel, this particular report is a reflection. It's a report on the Auditor General himself and his management.
Right, but Mr. Oware-Mensah, like you, Asiedu-Dartey, you mentioned, who is the current Auditor General, actually replaced Mr. Yaw Duodu at some point, and this report is from 2018 to 2024. So maybe not all of the accusations can be placed at his doorstep. Would you not agree?
Well, once Duodu is not in charge today, Duodu doesn't come in. When you say, you see, well, or let me say, in principle, yes, some of it can go to Duodu, but let's be careful, because the report is very new. Let's take time to digest. So far from what you said, did you mention any of them that affected Duodu's time specifically?
Right. No, we've not seen that. And so still on that, would you say it is public interest and pressure that has caused the Auditor General to make this report public? Ordinarily, you probably would have just gone to the Public Accounts Committee, then they will invite them, deliberate about it, ask questions, and then little to no action is taken thereafter. But this particular issue of the National Service Scheme and the corruption or alleged corruption that took place has generated quite the public storm. Could it be why this report is public now, you think?
Okay, when it comes to publication of the Auditor General's report, that one there is mandatory. under the Audit Service Act. And in matter of fact, when the Mlubu was in office, he used to have issues with the MPs. The MPs at a point wanted to be the ones to see it first before it to be published. But reading the Audit Service Act from the Mlubu's time, there's been this entrenched rule that the audit reports are published before they are sent to Parliament. So Mr. Kuyamwa came to meet that practice, and obviously it would have been difficult for him not to obey that particular practice or convention where all the reports are published on their websites before they get to Parliament.
Help us with some legal education here, Counsel. When the Auditor-General's report, for instance, comes out like this, what are the next steps that are taken, and are there prosecutorial powers therein, or unless someone actually takes the report, sends it to court, and then initiates a process before some prosecution actually does take place?
Great. So usually the reports are, after this publication, they are forwarded to Parliament, and then in due course, Parliament, the Public Accounts Committee you referred to earlier, first to go through. Okay, and even before the actual sittings, their preparations, letters are sent to the various persons who are said to have breached the rules. So letters are sent in advance, and they are given one by one. So at each particular sitting, a certain number of people know that, okay, on 29th of October, they have to appear before the Public Accounts Committee. Then the next batch, those who appear tomorrow, 30th, they also know letters are sent in advance, etc. So when all these things are done, sometimes they don't even wait to the end. Sometimes based on the very day's proceedings at the Public Accounts Committee, the committee is able to recommend straight away that so and so be prosecuted. And if we Google, even on the internet, we'll find some straight away from the committee sitting. They're able to say, look, the police should arrest this man. He shouldn't go home. And then they should start investigations, etc. So cases were sent to the courts in the past based on hearings from the Public Accounts Committee, right? And then later, the practice of saying they should prosecute died down. Yeah, sometimes later on you just would hear threats that, look, I'm a good man to report, to ask the policeman to take you straight away, etc. But in recent times, I don't seem to remember the last one that Public Accounts Committee asked for a prosecution and it was swiftly done. I don't seem to remember it. Maybe, what do you call it, Listeners' Council Google. But that's always the net, that they don't have to wait to the end. But the practice where there's a problem is that when they are done, they do the committee, they do a report, and then they send these reports to the various agencies involved. So there was this time, about 2 years or more, we had a meeting with the Auditor-General where CSOs, I was part of the CSOs, CDD, Amnesty International, the Ghana Integrity Initiative, all those people, and many more. Imani, Kofi Bentil, and Co. We did a demonstration because we're not getting enough disallowance and surcharge, you see. So that's a civil thing that can be done based on the Auditor-General's report. So based on the report, even apart from criminal prosecution, under Article 187, the Auditor-General can do disallowance and surcharge straight. It doesn't need to wait for Public Accounts Committee, etc. So that year, I think 2022, earlier in 2022, we did a demo and then we went to meet him, presented a petition. And during the meeting, the Auditor-General also mentioned that one of the challenges they face is that when the Parliament is done and they compile their reports and recommendations, they send those to the various agencies which were found to have breached the rules. The Auditor-General, they are not put in the picture. So one of the things the Auditor-General promised at the time to do is how they would write to Parliament so that Parliament will now put them in the picture, a more coordinated approach so that these reports, recommendations, etc., don't get lost in the system. Right. So you have a point, but that doesn't absolve the Auditor-General of his own powers under Article 187 to
Right.
do disallowance and surcharge. That's to take those people on to pay. And if they don't pay, then he knows what to do. They would go to court and recover all of these monies.
Mr. Martin Kpebu, thank you so much for speaking to us and your thoughts as always. He is a private legal practitioner, Martin Kpebu, there sharing his thoughts on this revelation by the Auditor-General where 2.5 billion Ghana cedis was paid actually to some individuals and ghosts and even people who, according to the report, were over 1,000 years old, I should say, and they all received salaries. And this is a period between 2018 and 2024. And the report is now public. You can also read it. And if you have already read it, what are your thoughts on it? Many of you are already sending your messages on our Facebook stream and on our YouTube stream as well. So do send us those messages. Keep them coming in. We'll share it with the rest of the world because you are part of the national conversation, and issues like this are of public interest. So it's good that you are always there to let us know that you are following the conversation and are sending your thoughts to us. This is still 3FM. You're listening to Hot Edition on 92.7. My name is Martin Asiedu-Dartey. Let's go on to some other stories relating to issues about corruption or corruption-related accusations. So the Office of the Special Prosecutor has conducted searches at the Trassaco residence of businessman Nana Yaw Duodu, popularly known as Dr. Sledge, at his East Legon office of Gold Ridge Company Limited. According to the OSP, the searches form part of ongoing investigations into alleged corruption and corruption-related offences linked to the Minerals Income Investment Fund, which is the MIIF, a gold trade program, which reportedly caused a loss of $94 million to the state. The operation, carried out under warrant issued by the High Court in Accra, led to the seizure of several items by the OSP's Asset Recovery and Management team. These items include luxury vehicles, jewellery, weapons, and documents connected to landed properties. Let's now go and speak to... let's go to the phone lines and speak to... Before that interview, let's stay on issues about legal matters. And if you're still watching us on Facebook, you can actually see the special prosecutor's position that he has shared on it. So they actually gave us the indication that they've gone to do a search in the house of Dr. Sledge. And if you are watching on Facebook, there's a picture of him. In case you do not know who this individual is, you can look for him on our Facebook pages there with the special prosecutor. And the key issue being raised by the Office of the Special Prosecutor, which has triggered the investigation, is also captured on our Facebook page and on our YouTube. So go there and take a look, send us your comment, and we'll be sharing it with the rest of the world. Like I indicated, we are going on to... the minority in Parliament has filed an an urgent motion demanding the immediate suspension of vetting of Justice Paul Bafo-Boni as Chief Justice. The motion urged Parliament to halt all processes by the Appointments Committee under all pending legal challenges surrounding the removal of former Chief Justice Gertrude Tokono, and to ensure that all these issues are resolved in court. The minority argues that with these cases currently before the High Court and the ECOWAS Court, proceeding with the vetting could undermine judicial independence and due process. However, a member of the Constitutional and Legal Affairs Committee, Philip Fifi Bachman, says the motion is dead on arrival. According to him, there is no established breach of the Constitution, and the minority is merely engaging in what he calls political gymnastics. The Appointments Committee has scheduled to vet Justice Bafo-Boni on the 10th of November 2025. So let's listen to what the member of the Constitutional and Legal Committee, Philip Fifi Bachman, has been saying.
The minority has served notice on the clerk to Parliament that we have a motion for the Speaker to consider the suspension of all activities both at the Parliamentary Select Committee on appointments and the plenary on anything that has to do with the consideration of the nomination of Justice Paul Bafuboni as the Chief Justice of the Republic of Ghana, having regard to the fact that there are a lot of uncompleted issues regarding the removal of Justice Tokonu as the Chief Justice. And we think that it is right that when you have matters still pending in the matter, you do not bring closure just like that. In Parliament, it is stopped by our own, standing orders from considering matters which are still pending before the courts. Currently, Justice Tokonu has about 6 pending cases at various courts, high courts, all the way to the Supreme Court, and she has 3 pending cases at the ECOWAS courts. And we believe that for good order's sake, it's very, very important that we finish and complete exhaustively all matters that are still pending before we consider the nomination of the acting Chief Justice. It is in the best interest of democracy and rule of law, and indeed it is also in the best interest of Justice Paul Bafuboni as he is being considered for consideration as the Chief Justice, that whatever has been done to Justice Tokonu may be done to him. So it's important that he takes his time. We don't need to be in a hurry. We think that there is a lot of haste, unnecessary haste in the whole procedure that is going through, and then we believe that it is our time that we halt all processes until the exhaustive completion of all other pending matters, before we take the vetting of the acting Chief Justice. So basically, that is what we have for you. We tabled the motion yesterday, and we believe at the right time when it is ripe, we would take it up in the plenary.
And you heard the voice of a member of the Constitutional and Legal Affairs Committee, Philip Fifi Buckman, there, who has been sharing his position on why he believes that the Constitutional and Legal Committee will still be meeting. Sharing a thought on why he believes that the decision by the minority to ask for the suspension of the vetting of the current Chief Justice or the acting Chief Justice Paul Bafuboni is a non-starter. They believe that the position being shared by the minority will not hold water, and that in as much as there are cases that the former Chief Justice sent to court, those cases have already been determined, including even the one in the ECOWAS court, where he believes that in as much as it is there, it will be dead on arrival and is very likely not to hold water. So the vetting will go on as planned. But what exactly is the thinking in this regard? Let's now go to the phone lines now and speak to Christian Hesse, Ma'am, who's joined us for a conversation on this. He's a private legal practitioner. Mr. Hesse, Ma'am, good evening. Thank you for joining us on 3FM.
Thanks for having me. It's Ma'am Hesse.
All right, thanks for the correction. I'm sure you followed the back and forth about what the minority is saying in Parliament regarding the vetting of the acting Chief Justice. Before we even come to the substantive case of whether the vetting will happen or not, the minority is making a case that the now former Chief Justice had some cases in court, and because the cases are in court, vetting someone else who is going to replace her would be, a contravention of the Constitution. Is that a fair argument the minority make?
Okay, let me play this scenario by you. In court, if a party is aggrieved by a ruling of the court, and he or she seeks to appeal that particular decision, the court, it does not, the mere fact that one has appealed does not necessarily mean that the courts below should stay proceedings. You get it? So one must bring an application to stay proceedings. Now, what am I saying? Yes, the fact that the former Chief Justice has matters ranging at various courts, does not mean that a constitutional body in the nature of the Parliament of Ghana cannot progress with whatever constitutional mandate it is vested under the Constitution to do. There must be a formal application that would injunct the Parliament of Ghana from carrying out what it is legally mandated to do. Now, this principle of law, even when an injunction application has been filed, it will still not stay the hands of Parliament, unlike private persons who, when are involved in private litigations, the filing of an injunction suffices to hold their hands until so that they will not take further steps until the matter is determined. Given where it goes, should it be favorable to the applicant, then the matter will be injuncted, whether by it will be injuncted where it is interlocutory, but if it is interim, that is by way of motion ex parte, that is not on notice to the other side. But if it involves a constitutional body, then the filing and serving alone is not also enough. But when the application is determined, so not to bring constitutional bodies to their knees by mere filing of injunctive applications. So yes, the fact that a motion has been brought, they say Parliament is the embodiment of its own rules. Parliament in its wisdom could decide to say, we want to hold on, but where Parliament in its own wisdom decide not to uphold that particular motion, then it means that the minority has no case. It must be a proper application which would invoke the right jurisdiction of a court of competent jurisdiction to hold the hands of Parliament. Other than that, it is just mere, I am guided by my word, but it will just be a motion that probably would not necessarily cause or tie the hands of Parliament.
And even if Parliament does go ahead to vet the acting Chief Justice and approval is given, or whatever decision the appointment committee take after the vetting, does the fact that the former Chief Justice has cases in court, can it change anything post the vetting?
Yeah, you know that post vetting, Parliament would have to agree. To pass the vetted justice of the Supreme Court to be the Chief Justice. So definitely, time is of the essence. If the former Chief Justice misses the timeline for the vetting, she still could injunct Parliament where there is a proper application, as I mentioned, filed in court and served on Parliament, and the application is thereof moved. Then it could injunct, that is where the application finds merit. Then the Parliament would be injuncted from approving the vetted Chief Justice to become CJ. So even though he might have gone through vetting, he would be left with the final constitutional stage. So when he goes through, he becomes the CJ proper and not acting. The wisdom in it is that, assuming without admitting or looking at the theoretical legal framework, that so this is a hypothesis that the Chief Justice, the former Chief Justice, is successful with her case and all of that, then it would mean that we would have two Chief Justices. So one would be main and one would be acting, and definitely the acting would have to step down. So that's just theoretical and looking at it in a summary. But as it is, and as it pans out now in the legal dynamic, the formal submission that I have made is what will be the most important.
Well, Counsel, everything we are saying now is largely speculative, and at least from your position, there are some legal background that you are trying to bring to all of this, and so we'll just have to wait and see how the next days pan out. Thank you so much for making time to speak to us.
Yeah, most welcome, sir.
And you heard the thoughts of a private legal practitioner, Christian Hesimam, who has just given us a perspective on what the minority is pushing in Parliament, which is that they will not agree for the acting Chief Justice to be vetted because they believe that the now former Chief Justice, Madam Gertrude Sabatokonu, who took a number of cases to court, has not had her day in court yet, or the cases have not had finality brought to them yet. So it means that since those cases are still in court, then this man should not be vetted because his vetting, if approved, will be coming to replace her. The majority side, the NDC in Parliament, say that the thoughts being espoused by the minority is dead on arrival, so they would not even be looking in that direction. But do let us know in the comment section what you make of this banter and the back and forth between the NDC and the NPP in Parliament regarding the vetting of the Chief Justice. In the comment section, we'll read your messages in a jiffy. This is still 3FM 92.7. We're going on to other stories this